What Alexander Isach has actually been doing during Newcastle United absence as Liverpool prepare bid. Alexander Isach should be with the Newcastle United squad in South Korea right now, but is nowhere to be seen. Newcastle United's world was rocked when it emerged. Alexander Isach was not traveling to Asia due to a thigh problem. Things then got even more severe when it transpired that Isach wants to leave Newcastle. The 25-year-old has been the talk of the tune ever since, with Eddie Howe speaking about Isach's future upon arrival in South Korea. In the eyes of the Newcastle United manager, they are in control of the situation as he is under contract until 2028. Alexander Isach, training on his own as Newcastle United tour Asia. As the Newcastle United squad work hard in Asia, Isach is working all by himself. That is according to transfer expert Graham Bailey, who has spoken to Geordie Bootboys to provide an update on Isach's situation since opting against the preseason tour. Alexander Isach is at home, and Newcastle have not seen him since he left training last week, I am told, he said. Isach is undertaking his own training program at this point. What does that mean? Well, it's not ideal. But there is not much Newcastle can do with the main squad and coaches in Asia. Let's see how this plays out. What Liverpool are thinking as they prepare opening Alexander Isach bid. As Bailey says, there is not much Isach can do while Newcastle United are away. It will be interesting to see whether he returns to the Newcastle United training ground when the squad are back from their travels. In the meantime, Liverpool are getting set to make a bid with Geordie Boot. Boys understand that the Reds are prepared to pay more than £120 million to sign Isach, with sporting director Richard Hughes working on an offer that they think will be acceptable. He's Newcastle United. Value Isach at £150 million, which would be a British record transfer fee. There does not appear to be any other suitors for Isach. Al Hilal were linked, but Isach does not want to go to Saudi Arabia. Alexander Isach has already indicated that he might not choose the number 9 shirt at Liverpool. Alexander Isach is desperate to join Liverpool, and he will likely do anything he can to secure the move. When the news broke that the Reds were prepared to make a move for Isach, the whole of social media went into meltdown. Ever since then, the story has gained significant traction, and the transfer has gone from a dream to a genuine possibility. The Reds may have spent almost £300 million already this summer and brought in a striker in the form of Hugo Ekitike, but they are prepared to make one last big move to sign Isach. The Reds have always dreamed of having Isach as their number 9, and this might become a reality, although he has already suggested that he might take a different shirt number instead. Alexander Isach could take the number 14 at Liverpool instead. There is always something so appealing about the big striker donning the number 9 shirt for the club you support, especially if they are such a big name like Isach. However, a lot of pressure comes with wearing that shirt, and at Liverpool, some of the greats have worn it throughout time, including Ian Rush, Robbie Fowler, and Fernando Torres. Despite this, Isach has already hinted that he might not even take the number after performing so well with a different one at Newcastle. I'm doing well, and I'm happy with the number 14, but on the other hand, I know the number 9 is a special shirt, he told Alan Shearer in an interview with BBC Sport. He took the number 14 as a subtle nod to his footballing idol Thierry Henry, who wore it at both Arsenal and Barcelona. If he were to wear this at Liverpool, however, he would have to take it off Italian Federico Chiesa, although the winger might have already departed by the time Isach could arrive. The number 9, of course, is currently occupied by Darwin Núñez, another player who may not be around for much longer. But if they both are, then someone might be left rather upset by the Swedes' arrival. Liverpool should do everything they can to get Alexander Isach. It does not matter how much the transfer fee would cost, how much the agent wants, or even what squad number he would demand. Liverpool need to do everything in their power to get Isach through the door. An opportunity like this one does not arrive very often at all, and after chasing him for so long, this could be their only and final chance. He is the perfect striker for the Reds as he can do everything. He is quick, creative, can use both feet, and is equally adept with his head. At 25, he also still has room for growth, a frightening prospect for a player who is already so talented and has so much experience. Under Arne Slot, and surrounded by the likes of Florian Wirtz and Mohamed Salah, his move is a recipe for success. It is now all down to both clubs finding an agreement. Benjamin Cesco impressed by Man UTD as final price tag confirmed. Benjamin Cesco has reportedly been informed of Manchester United's project. Benjamin Cesco is reportedly impressed by Manchester United after being made aware of Ruben Amorim's long-term plans. A pursuit of a new center forward could lead the Red Devils towards making a formal approach for the RB Leipzig star. United will not be deterred in their search for a new number 9, despite missing out on Liam Delap and Victor Gyökeres. Amorim has already improved his forward line with the additions of Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. An upgrade through the middle would take United's attack to another level. Cesco reportedly remains a target, but Newcastle are also interested in signing the 22-year-old amid strong speculation that Alexander Isach could leave. According to Sky Germany, United have laid out their project to Cesco and have proposed figures ahead of potential talks over personal terms. The Slovenia international is said to be impressed by United's interest. It is claimed that Leipzig won at least £64 million for the forward. That could mean United have to sell before they can buy, having already spent around £130 million on Mbeumo and Cunha this summer. United have so far struggled to offload a string of fringe players, including Alejandro Garnacho, Antony and Jadon Sancho. Marcus Rashford has only joined Barcelona on loan, with the potential to make the deal permanent for £26 million next summer. Ruben Amorim's Man UTD project has reportedly been made clear to Benjamin Cesco. Cesco has been linked with Europe's biggest clubs ever since he burst into the scene at Red Bull Salzburg as a 16-year-old. He could finally move to the Premier League this summer, with Newcastle reportedly keen on him as a potential Isaac replacement. United boss Amorim insists any player who joins the club this summer will need to be fully invested in his project. He told the club's media channels, "They have to want to come here. I think what we can do to the fans is that we want players who have proved themselves already. Sometimes you have a player with a lot of potential, you have to be aware of that. But all the players that are coming, we need to know the player. We need to talk to the player. We have to explain the project. And then one really important thing is that they want to come here. That is the key point. If during the market we can find someone that can help the team and have all that boxes with them, we are going to do it. If not, we cannot do it because it's an important time in our club." Newcastle racing to sign phenomenal star who outscored Isaac last season. On the hunt to end their search for a striker at long last, Newcastle United are now reportedly battling to sign an impressive target who outscored Alexander Isach last season. Newcastle's striker search goes on. It's been a disappointing summer for Newcastle, but it's especially been a woeful last 7 days. Having missed out on Hugo Ekitike, it seemed as though the saving grace in that saga would be that Liverpool settled for the Frenchman rather than Isaac on top. But the Swede has since dropped a bombshell on the Magpies. Reports swiftly emerged earlier this week that the forward's thigh injury was simply a smokescreen for his desire to leave St. James Park this summer to spark what could be an almighty battle between the player and club as the transfer window progresses. Having his say on the matter, Eddie Howe told reporters, "Of course there are things going on behind the scenes. He will be aware, he's in the news every day, and I'm sure that's not easy for anyone in that situation. Conversations that happen between Alex and the club, or Alex and myself, will stay private for obvious reasons. We do share a really good relationship with him. He's been magnificent for us since he's joined. He's very popular in the dressing room. We'd love him to continue his journey at Newcastle." Isak's desire to leave Newcastle isn't even the latest of a long line of disappointing news this summer, however, with their pursuit to sign Yoane Wissa taking a major twist. Now, with the Isak's sage continuing and Wissa off the table for now, Newcastle have reportedly set their sights on a familiar face. Newcastle battling for Mitrovic's return. According to Caught Offside, Newcastle United are now battling to sign Alexander Mitrovic from Al Hilal this summer, with those at the club warming to the idea of bringing him back. The experienced goalscorer, who still loves the Magpies despite his time at the club not ending in the way he would have dreamed, could put his St. James's Park failure behind him once and for all with a return this summer. 7 years on from leaving Newcastle, Mitrovic is far more well-rounded and even outscored Isak'S 27-goal haul last season, with 28 of his own in all competitions, and loves St. James' Park, once calling it his favorite away ground while at Fulham. It was during his time at Fulham that the Serbian earned the most praise, with manager Marco Silva going as far as to describe him as phenomenal in 2022. Now, at 30 years old, Mitrovic could return with a bang to St. James' Park to hand Howe an unexpected solution to his growing striker problems. When will Viktor Gyökeres make his Arsenal debut? Mikel Arteta offers update on £65 million signing. Mikel Arteta has suggested Arsenal fans might have to wait for their first sight of Viktor Gyökeres in the club's shirt. Arsenal play rival Spurs on Thursday. Gyökeres did not report for Sporting pre-season. Arteta: "We will assess him. What happened?" Gunners fans would have hoped for their new £64 million, $86 million, man to feature in the first North London derby to take place outside of the UK. Gyökeres is in Asia with his new teammates. He was unveiled before the Gunners' 3-2 win over Newcastle in Hong Kong, but Arteta has suggested the Arsenal medical staff need to assess his fitness before he confirms his availability. The bigger picture. Gyökeres held out of Sporting CP's pre-season to help push through the protracted transfer. His new manager said that while his medical was passed without a hitch, they need to get him up to speed with the right levels of fitness. Arteta did not completely rule out the 27-year-old from appearing on Thursday. What Arteta said: when asked if Gyökeres would participate in tomorrow's training session and the North London derby on Thursday, Arteta said, "Well, I think he hasn't had a single training session with the team since the last game was Sporting when they became champions. So we will assess him tomorrow. He's done all the medicals. Everything is looking good, but to get him up to speed with the right levels of fitness, I think is very important. So we're not going to stop him. We want him with us as quick as possible, but we'll have to assess, and the medical team will do that." What next for Gyökeres? Gyökeres will be chomping at the bit to get on the training pitch alongside his new teammates. The Swede, who will adopt Thierry Henry's No.14 shirt, needs to prove his fitness ahead of the Gunners' first Premier League game of the season against Manchester United on August 16th. Newcastle prepare big contract proposal as Alexander Isach to Liverpool takes twist. Alexander Isach wants to leave Newcastle for Liverpool. Newcastle are reportedly preparing a huge contract proposal as they consider their options in the wake of Alexander Isak's explosive transfer demand. The Swede has set out of the Magpies' pre-season tour to Asia after asking to leave the club, having asked for his wages to be bolstered to £300,000 a week. Liverpool were put on red alert following the revelation, having already spent nearly £300 million this summer and bringing in fellow striker Hugo Ekitike. A formal bid is expected to be launched from Anfield, which would smash the British transfer record. Newcastle want to keep Isach at St. James's Park, but are seemingly not willing to break their existing wage structure to appease the talisman. He would earn twice as much as top stars such as Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes as a result. In turn, Newcastle have been forced to look at succession options for Isach. Their sights appear to be set on RB Leipzig wonderkid Benjamin Cesco, who has previously been linked with Manchester United and Arsenal. Transfer expert Fabrizio Romano claims that Newcastle are working on a significant contract proposal to Cesco, with the club ready to go big next week. These 7 days are considered crucial for the Slovenian's future. For the latest breaking stories and headlines, sign up to our Daily Express transfer newsletter. Newcastle are pushing for Benjamin Cesco. Newcastle are also ready to approach Leipzig over Cesco in the knowledge that a gentleman's agreement exists allowing the 22-year-old to leave this summer for potentially as much as a fixed fee of £69 million, with a further £8 million in add-ons. Cesco's arrival would go some way to soothe the pain of losing Isach, especially to a Premier League rival, with Liverpool's transfer kitty bolstered by the imminent sale of Luis Diaz to Bayern Munich for £65 million. They could also sell Darwin Núñez to Saudi Arabia to raise further funds. And Eddie Howe has called for Newcastle to make a decision shortly on their plans for Isach. The ownership, together with the board of directors, the decision will rest with the board, Howe said. There's a whole football club that has to make the decision. He also confirmed that there was no chance Isach would join up with the rest of the squad in South Korea. "I've got no major update on that," Howe added on Isach after an injury was first cited for his absence. He first mentioned his thigh just before the Celtic game. "We assumed it would be a very minimal injury, nothing too serious. And then on the Monday after the Celtic game, he went in from training very early and didn't feel right. So he's now in Newcastle getting that injury assessed, and hopefully he'll be back soon and playing in the black and white shirt. That's what we all want to see."